Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining me today. Big show planned for you as always. Great to be back after the weekend. Interesting weekend in the world of sports. Gamecocks, they get the job done against Kentucky as they try to solidify themselves as a regional host site. Clemson goes down to Florida State, and if you didn't watch the games, you would think that Clemson was not very competitive, but they go down, they win one game out of 3 against a team that's ranked in the top 15 in the country, and they look like they're trying to get themselves set up for a postseason berth. We'll see how that works out for the Clemson Tigers. We've also got the Clemson softball team. Somehow they go, I think it was like 42-5, some ridiculous number. And not only do they not get a home regional, which I think that has something to do with stadium capacity or whatever, but they have to go on the road and play the number 3 team in the country in Alabama. So yeah, I think that's a lot of Clemson fans in the world of Twitter and social media are upset about that. But when you really stop and think about it, it doesn't matter as long as you're in the tournament. I get that. Anyway, today's show, first thing I wanted to talk about was, I kind of wanted to get into this for a moment. I got my COVID vaccine on Saturday, and I tell you what, it was a mess. And what I mean by that is that I got the Pfizer vaccine, and and I've shared on the show, I got the virus last July, kind of put me on my butt for about 3 weeks. Then after that, I end up getting the shot. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Phone lines are open. Folks are already calling in, 803-978-1832. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Yes, hello, Rob. It's Bobby and Casey. How are you?
I'm good, friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you had a good weekend. I did.
Good, man. What's up, buddy?
Good. Well, I got 2 quick stories, and I don't know if you've seen them and you had them on your plate to talk about them.
Sure.
Citadel, Coastal Carolina got moved from the 4th of September to when I believe the 2nd would be a Thursday night.
That's cool.
Citadel, Coastal Carolina, give them a prime time slate.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. Thursday night matchup there. That's kind of neat. All right.
And here's the wild story. The Zion Williamson story gets even wild, more incredible.
Yeah, go ahead and fill us in on that, because my friend, is a mess.
3 large a month from Adidas and the agent. 3 large, that's $3,000 for anybody who doesn't know how to big city talk. They didn't make direct payments. They sent it through like a furniture chain, like store credit to his family.
Right.
They actually didn't send it. So I sent it. My wife's finishing out our taxes today on the laptop. So before I wanted a computer before you came or during the show, but I listened to it and I do the work on the laptop. So today's tax day, May 17th, for anybody who forgot.
Yes.
So I tried to send those 2 things to you before I got out here on the car and called, because I listened to the show on the laptop.
Yeah.
And I searched through Twitter. So that's the 2 interesting stories.
Yeah.
The Zion Williamson thing, you can read the article and you crack it open.
Appreciate that, brother.
And then also, one other thing, Adlon's magazines are pretty much out on the newsstands, the SEC and their national magazine.
I know, right?
And Lindy's will have their SEC and their national magazine out by June 15th.
Looking forward to that. Magazine season means we can really get into the talking points of the year, or the talking season, right?
That's their college football magazines. And yeah. I'll name the usual suspects where I purchased them from. Walgreens, Barnes & Noble,
okay.
Books A Million.
All right.
I know that they're not sponsors. I really shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
But just anybody who's interested in grabbing them off the newsstand, or you can order them directly off the sites. Phil Steele will be out more or less around July 24th. And I get it directly sent to me. I ordered off his site, so it's sent in the mail.
Cool, buddy.
He is the best, the Bible of college football.
You're right about that, Bobby. Thank you, man.
Have a good day, Rob.
Appreciate
Hope you're feeling better. You're coughing.
Thank you, brother.
Hope you're feeling a little better.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Bobby from KC joining us, giving us some stuff today. He's right, man. The college football season is going to be here before we know it. And getting back to what I was saying about the COVID vaccine. So I get it on Saturday. I felt like teetotal just awful yesterday. It was just, I felt like I was running in sand the whole day. It felt like I had COVID back in July. I'm not telling you don't get the vaccine, but oof. And once again, it's different for everybody, but I wrote down on my notes for those that are watching online. By the way, you can watch at the Fox Sports Radio 1400 website. I have all these notes. The top note is mention the COVID vaccine, because I think there's people out there that aren't, hey, I'm not going to get it. And that's on you. If you want to get it, great. If not, I'm not here to be one of these folks that tell you how to take care of yourself. I'm getting it because I want to be around people a lot in the coming fall, whether it's football games or whatever. And I want to be able to have the peace of mind that I have the COVID vaccine. Now, that's my choice. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. But I tell you what, as bad as I felt yesterday, it was really bad. And I almost was like, oh, I don't want to come in today. But the show must go on. That's what I told the wife this morning. Anyway, all right, let's actually talk some stuff that is on the sports front now. We'll get into the Zion Williamson story in a little bit. And by the way that's shaking out, there's no way that you can determine how any of these players could be possibly getting paid if they were doing it the way that this story alleges. Yeah. But I thought I would do, I'm going to guess some of the Las Vegas lines for these early season matchups the first week of the season. And I'll tell you what, we'll start with Ohio State at Minnesota. Now, this is Big Ten football, so this doesn't, in my opinion, it's it's the Big Ten. It's nothing that really impresses me. I mean, Ohio State winning against Clemson last year was like winning the Super Bowl for them. They'll probably put a banner up there in that whatever that stadium is that they have up there, and they think that's the absolute biggest win ever. But it is the Big Ten, and so take this accordingly. That's how I look at it. But Ohio State will play at Minnesota, and this is a Thursday night game. Now, on paper, Ohio State has tons and tons of talent, and you may be saying to yourself, why is it they're going to be favored? So I think that some folks, if you just looked at it from one perspective, you might say, okay, Ohio State by 17 points. Me personally, I'm going with Ohio State minus 12. Now, I'm going to keep track of these predictions that I have on what the line's going to be, and we'll see how close I'm going to get. I think that line will open up minus 12, and I think it'll reach up to about 14 by kickoff on that Thursday night. But I think that's where they're going to have it, simply because it is a Thursday night game, first game of the season in Minnesota. Row, row, row your boat. They're going to row that boat up there with PJ Fleck, and they're going to keep it close. And Ohio State should have more talent, but should be interesting either way. So I'm going to Ohio State minus 12. The next game, UNC at Virginia Tech. Friday night in Lane Stadium. And I think that the big thing with this is that you're going to have this game going silly with Virginia Tech and everyone talking about Justin Fuente and the fact that he may be coaching for his job right now. And I firmly believe that. I absolutely believe he's coaching for his job. Does he want to be at Virginia Tech? I don't know. But I think he's coaching for his job to stay there this season. And I tell you what, you can alleviate a lot of those hot seat things if you can knock off what I think is going to be the preseason Coastal Division favorite with North Carolina. This is a Friday night game, so that kind of throws things off just a little bit, in my opinion. It is going to be at Lane Stadium, so I think that's a big deal. But I'm going to go North Carolina minus 2. I think it's going to be about a field goal game, in my opinion. We'll see where Las Vegas, if they agree with me. I don't know. We'll find out. One of the more interesting matchups in the Big Ten, Indiana at Iowa. Iowa is in my opinion, I think they're going to be about a 2-point favorite. And the reason being, there's just a lot of talent there. I think if they were at a neutral site, it would be a pick'em game, in my opinion. Up next, another Big Ten game, Penn State at Wisconsin. I think a lot of people are going to look at Penn State last year and they're going to think, you know what? Penn State was pretty terrible last year. You can make an argument that they didn't, they kind of checked out there once things kind of fell off the wheels a little bit. I think Coach Franklin can coach, and I think he's going to have these young men motivated. Still, I'm going to go with Wisconsin -5 since it's at Wisconsin, and I think Penn State will keep it close. Next matchup is Louisiana at Texas. Now, here's the thing with Louisiana. Now, I know you're thinking, wait a minute, Rob, this is a group of 5 team playing Texas at Texas, where they got the big Longhorn like put out in the stands. You know what I mean? Opening up of the season, Steve Sarkisian doing his thing, and everybody loves all of that, right? Yeah. Here's the thing. Louisiana returns one of the most veteran teams in the country. That's just the way that it is. And I think the Raging Cajuns will keep it close. But I still have Texas as about a 6-point favorite in their matchup with Louisiana. I think it'll be close. I really do. You got Alabama playing at a neutral site with Miami. Alabama is a coward when it comes to scheduling home and homes. They don't do it. They'll tell you that, oh, this is, we're Alabama. We don't have to do that. We play an SEC West schedule. Yeah, you're going to have to get out of that once the college football playoff expands, and they will. That's why they've scheduled some home and homes with other teams. But generally, Alabama schedules a matchup with a team from the ACC, or they'll do something at a neutral site. They won't do a home and home setup. And the only reason they won't do it, and I don't care, Alabama fans, please tweet at me at Rob Sounds Good. It is an act of cowardice. You don't want another team on your schedule. You don't want to take in the possibility that you may have to play a tough matchup. Now, I'm not saying Alabama doesn't have the players to do it, but the reality is that in their mind, they think that if they're playing LSU, Auburn, and Texas A&M every season, in addition to if they do get to schedule someone from the East that's relatively good, as in this year they've got Florida, they think that if they have those 4 matchups, that brings them a good enough strength of schedule that they don't have to schedule anyone else as far as out of conference. They can play non-conference games against teams from lower level conferences, Charleston Southern, the Citadel, whatever, whoever they can get to come to Alabama. And then they'll schedule just to try to throw out there, well, we played this ACC team. Yeah, but you didn't play a home and home. And it's an act of cowardice. I don't care what anyone says. Feel free to tweet at me at Rob Sounds Good. That's just the way that it is. And that goes back to the SEC line of lies that you'll completely hear all the time, that playing in the SEC means you play the toughest schedule ever. Absolutely play the toughest schedule ever, when in reality you don't. I mean, that's just the way that it is. What was the stat, if I remember correctly? At the end of the season last year, teams that finished ranked in the top 25 at the end of the year, as far as regular season games, Alabama played the same amount of ranked teams at the end of the year as Clemson did. Oh, I know that doesn't appeal to the folks that are like, hey, the SEC is awesome. The SEC, like they invented football. They just allow these other teams to do their thing. Yeah, no, if you look at the final rankings, go back and check it out. I'm pretty sure that's right. I got to check that stat. But if I remember correctly, the team that Alabama ended up playing, I think it was 2 teams that finished ranked in the top 25 at the end of the year. Just 2, Texas A&M and Georgia, if I remember correctly. Everyone else, not so much. Just regular season games. So there's that. But Bama will play at Miami. Miami's got De'Aaron King. He's the guy that has the opportunity to give Nick Saban fits because he'll run around and make plays. And it's not something that you can actually prepare for. Running quarterbacks are hard to prepare for, in my opinion. Guys that can move the ball with their feet can give problems to anyone. And since it's the first game of the season, I think that there's going to be issues. There's issues with every team, but you can make an argument that your weakest game is probably your first game of the season. as far as people missing assignments and everything else. Now, with that, though, when you really step back and look from it, I don't know how great De'Aaron King's going to be right there. So with that, I'm going to go Alabama minus 19. I think they'll be a 19-point favorite over Miami. And a lot of that's got to do with the fact that I don't think De'Aaron King is going to be 100%. So that's just my gut feeling. I think that's what the opening line will be, is about 19 points for Alabama. Now, Alabama's got to do better. They got to start scheduling the home and home, and I think they're going to start doing that. All right, we come back. I've got some more lines for you. We'll take a quick break. Two of the bigger games, LSU at UCLA and Georgia with Clemson. We'll tell you what my projection on that when we come back. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Jordan, that's a good guess, brother. I'm going to grab some water. I'll be right back. You may be right about that there. We may be. We shall see. Well, welcome back to The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I'm doing my betting prediction lines for the first week of the season. Just to recap, got Ohio State minus 12 over Minnesota. I've got UNC minus 4 at Virginia Tech. Iowa minus 2 at home. Wisconsin minus 5 at home. Texas minus 7 at home over Louisiana. Though, wouldn't that just be great if Texas dropped that first game to Louisiana? That would be insane, right? And then we move on to, I've got Alabama's about a 19-point favorite. And the reason that I have it at such a big number, yes, I know it's Alabama, but I also don't believe that De'Aaron King is going to be at 100%. I just don't buy it yet. So if he was at 100%, I'd probably move it to like 14, maybe 13, because I think he's that dynamic of a player. But without him, Alabama's going to be a mess. Or excuse me, not Alabama. Miami's going to be a mess. I really believe that. All right, final two games that I did some research on. LSU at UCLA. Now, I know this game is on the road. And there's another thing, too. It's the opener for LSU, but I think that UCLA plays like a warm-up game before that. Okay? I think, if I remember correctly. So LSU really doesn't get an opportunity to dust off the wheels here, and they just have to go at it. And I know folks that love the Pac-12, they're thinking, man, this is an opportunity to knock off an SEC blue blood. But I think LSU is going to have confidence this year. And I'm not saying they're going to win the West, but I think they're going to get back to the LSU of old where 9 to 10 win season, right there with Alabama, right there with Texas A&M. Can they win those two games? That's going to be their year. So with that, I'm going to go with LSU minus 5 points in that game. And I think it'll move up bigger. Might get up to 8 by the time we have kickoff. All right, up next, we've got the final matchup of the day for me anyway that I put out there, and it's Georgia and Clemson. Now, this game's at a neutral site. I don't like neutral site games, but it is at a neutral site, so I wish that I could be more positive about it, but the neutral site games are just terrible. At the beginning of the season, just play home and homes. The best part about college football is the atmosphere that you have at each stadium. We've had folks on to talk about the different traditions around the country, from Virginia Tech to Miami to whatever. Every university and every team has some sort of tradition that you want to experience, and you can become a part of that. Now, when you have a game at an NFL site, man, it's just it just feels flat. Now, I know that there are Georgia fans that are going to tell. I've got some Georgia fans that follow me that say, "Oh, well, Georgia's going to win this game by 3 touchdowns." I mean, that's just the way that it's going to be. I mean, Georgia thinks that they're the Bama of the East, as far as the SEC East. That's the way that they feel. And little old Clemson with little old Dabo Swinney up there, who, by the way, in the past 5 seasons has won 2 national titles, and Georgia hasn't won a national title since 1980, but none of that matters because in their mind, Kirby Smart invented football right over there with Nick Saban. They got together and they invented it. That's how Georgia fans think with some of this stuff. But I think that Clemson this year's defense has the potential to be as good as their last championship defense when they had Cleveland Farrell and all of those guys, simply because of the depth that they have. Tyler Davis, of course, Brzee, who had a monster year last year. Xavier Thomas is on you better get your stuff together or you're not going to make an NFL team. That kind of thing going with him. The question with him hasn't been talent. It's just being able to put it on the field. I think the Clemson defense is going to be really good. And it'll be the best defense that JT Daniels has faced. Flat out. In his college career. I fully believe that. So with that, with the fact that it's an early game, I've got Clemson as a 5-point favorite to start. Now, I know that seems kind of steep, but the reality is that I don't know what JT Daniels is going to do against a really good defense. And to be honest, nobody else does either. And I think Clemson's defense is going to be really good. I really do. Now, I think the Georgia defense is going to be good too. But I think the Clemson offense will put up enough, and I think Clemson's going to win. I think for Georgia to win, they're going to have to put up, 35 points, and I just don't see that happening. I don't see it happening. So give me Clemson minus 5. I think that's where Las Vegas is going to start. It'll probably drop down to the 3-point range by the time we get to kickoff. So Tom's online. He says the Gamecocks on top. Yeah, Gamecocks are playing Eastern Illinois. the one stat from Eastern Illinois, they didn't play last season, and I think they opted out for this spring set too. They are Tony Romo's home, though, so they have a Hall of Famer that played there. And with that, I don't think that's going to help them. I think the Gamecocks will win by 17. I think that's what, if they put a line out on it in Las Vegas, Gamecocks should be at least a 17 to 24 point favorite over Eastern Illinois. All right, so there you go. Just to recap, Ohio State minus 12, North Carolina minus 4, Iowa minus 2, Wisconsin minus 5, Texas minus 7, Bama minus 19, Clemson minus 5, and LSU minus 5. So there's that. Tom says Georgia's running backs are nice. If they take control of time of possession, then he likes their chances. And that's with any team. They used to say time of possession wasn't a very important stat. I don't believe that. I think if you hold the ball and you're able to run the ball, you can run the clock out. Teams like Army do that all the time. That's why Army wins 8, 9, 10 games a year, and they don't have half the talent of anybody else. So, yeah, I think that's a big deal. Tom is exactly right on that. Me personally, though, I think the Clemson defense will shine, and I think it's going to be a showing where they'll need at least 35 to take down Clemson, and I just don't see Georgia getting it. Jimmy asked about my underdog pick. Look, these aren't my picks. It's just what I think the spread is going to be. If you had to give me to pick an underdog in this setup, I'd probably go with Virginia Tech. I really would. I think Virginia Tech playing at home on a Friday night might be interesting right there at the beginning of the season. But I think North Carolina is still going to be favored. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you here on The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. I really like North Carolina this season, but I think that Virginia Tech game could be a stumbling point. And they lost Chaz Surratt, too, who I think is outstanding.
I just got a dental bill that's going to be well more than that, and I can't use it to pay for my dentist.
I gave the Heisman odds earlier, but I might do the Heisman list later on this week, Tom. We'll see how that works out. Have you got a pick there, Tom? I got to look at my numbers on that. Give me a minute, Jimmy. I'll let you know. But that's going to be, I think that they've got, if I remember right, I think they've got 3 linemen returning. I'd have to look back at that. The crazy thing is that I don't think I'd put. I mean, I if you could probably bet on Harris out in Las Vegas, but I don't think he's going to get the carries. I think that Lloyd will have enough carries that it'll pull him out of the mix. To be completely honest with you.
Chris Collinsworth. Here's what's trending on the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings.
So I was telling everybody, I got my COVID vaccine on Saturday. It sucks. It absolutely sucks. It's like yesterday, I felt like hot dog water all day, man. It was terrible. Now today, like I feel somewhat better, but now I'm all nasally and it's like, oh, back in my throat. It's terrible. It is terrible.
Use code SPORTS to get a free shot at millions of dollars up for grabs this week with your first deposit. Minimum $5 deposit required.
Fox Sports Radio 1400, serving Columbia at 1400, and the world on the iHeartRadio app.
Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I was talking about the vaccine at the during the break with the folks in the chat room, which you can join the chat room over there at foxsportsradio1400.com. Tom says I'm going to grow an 11th finger now. No, I'm just going to have a horn. I have like a horn and like a unicorn tail. That's pretty much what I'm going to have now. No, I'm picking. But, man, that vaccine's kind of wearing me out a little bit, to be honest. We were talking about Justin Fuente possibly being on the hot seat. So I thought about some group of 5 coaches that could make that jump to the Power 5 level. And I thought I'd share some of those with you. Some of the names that come up for me, obviously, Billy Napier at Louisiana. He could, in theory, make a big statement with Texas. If he just goes in there and keeps it competitive, and even after what they did last season, this is a Louisiana team that they're one of the more veteran teams in the country. Back-to-back 10-win seasons, 3 division titles. So, I mean, he is really, really good. I think there's a set of people that just don't like the way that he coaches. And if you watch, there was a Friday night game last year where it just kind of looked different with some of the stuff that he did. But I think Billy Napier is going to be a guy that will be highly sought after, especially if he can go in there and go toe-to-toe with Texas. And the next year, I mentioned he's got a veteran team. Yeah, that veteran team is interesting in that everybody's going to graduate. So he's going to have to start from scratch. So the idea of him being there, yeah, not so much. Not so much. Also, you got to think about Jamie Chadwell down at Coastal. And, they are, in my opinion, they were one of the better stories from last year. If they win 10 more games this season, I mean, he won the AP Coach of the Year honors over Nick Saban last year. I'm just saying, when you can do that, you're going to be thought of very highly. He also has a unique system. And when you go somewhere else, if you have something that's unique and something that not everyone is doing, which is basically the same thing. But no, I mean, if you have something that's unique and something that you can implement anywhere that will give you some sort of an advantage, athletic directors love that. And with that, that's why I think his system and the way that he does things, which is just a little bit different, will make him highly sought after. Now, I know his Charleston Southern teams from 2014 to 2015 had to vacate victories due to NCAA violations, but sometimes, some of that stuff you have to give them another opportunity. All right. A couple of other coaches, Bill Clark from UAB. Basically, Alabama tried to shut their program down, and they had the shutdown. They did get a bowl appearance in 2017. The first since their 2-year hiatus. 3 more bowl games, 2 Conference USA titles. They've been rock solid. And I think Bill Clark is a guy that could do it. Another guy, you could go with Jeff Monken at Army. And he runs that triple option offense. Now, I know that Paul Johnson had it at Georgia Tech and it didn't really work. And people talked about, oh, it's back to the Stone Ages. But I'm not talking about him going into, take over at Miami or something like that. But if he could go in somewhere else where, hey, you can get some smart kids. And what I mean by that is not that the other kids are stupid, but I'm talking about superior student athletes like what they've got at Army. If he could go somewhere like that, like a Duke would be a good example to take over for Coach David Cutcliffe, where he could teach these guys this option system where you don't have to have the biggest, baddest offensive lineman on the planet. And you can implement that and possibly get yourself back to some respectability, not at a point where you're going to win conference titles. Although Georgia Tech did win the ACC one year with Paul Johnson, and they beat up on Mississippi State with Dak Prescott and all those guys. People seem to forget about that. But I think Jeff Monken at Army could have the opportunity to do that as one of the Power 5 coaches that is in the mix to move up and do something else. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. I mentioned that because there's, as always, is the coaching hot seat. And there's a website called thecoachinghotseat.com, if I remember correctly. And if you look at the top 10 from there last year, there were, I think, like, of the top 10 at the beginning of the season, I think 8 of the 10 ended up moving on. So the coaching hot seat is a cool website. I'm trying to pull it up right now, but there's going to be the signs of, hey, we've got to get a new coach, etc. That's got to happen. And according to coacheshotseat.com, number 1 on the list is Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, followed by Clay Helton at Southern Cal, Jeff Brom at Purdue, Scott Frost at Nebraska, and they've got Mike Leach up here, even though the Pirates in his second season there at Mississippi State, and then Justin Fuente at Virginia Tech. Some other names from the ACC, you've got Syracuse, Coach Dino Babers, and Georgia Tech coach Jeff Collins, Jeff Scott at South Florida, the former Clemson assistant, and David Cutcliffe at Duke. So that's interesting too. So all those guys are in the mix there, and someone's got to come up and coach for them. Maybe one of these group of 5 coaches will have the opportunity to move from that group of 5 job into something else. I'm pretty sure by the end of the season, you're going to have some of these guys that are going to be really looking for new jobs. Is it going to be Mike Norvell at Florida State? Maybe Steve Adazio at Colorado State. We'll see how that shakes out. Could Scott Satterfield possibly be looking for a job at Louisville? Man, he tore it up at Appalachian State and then left there and didn't really do much at Louisville, to be honest. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, people are already questioning Urban Meyer about his use of his first-round draft pick to take Travis Etienne. Not because it's Travis Etienne, but what they're doing with Travis Etienne early in their setup down there with Jacksonville. We'll talk about that and a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. How many of y'all have gotten the vaccine? Are you guys vaccine folks over there or not?
Do those spring showers make a mess on your carpets? Don't fret. Get the insanely clean power of Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean for only $119. And when you mention this station, get a hallway clean for free. Schedule online at ZeroResColumbia.com.
We're celebrating our favorite holiday, Streaming Day, on May 20th by giving you a chance to win a Roku Streaming Stick Plus. The Roku Streaming
Mine's giving me like radical sinus drainage. It's crazy.
ultimate streaming device to get free entertainment from anywhere in the house, like the iHeartRadio app. favorite iHeartRadio podcasts, like Stuff You Should Know, Fake Doctors, Real Friends, or the Ron Burgundy podcast. So here's to celebrating. Enter to win at iHeartRadio.com/Roku. Happy streaming.
Hey, it's God of Rock for this year, my lawn spring back to life. Looks green and everything, and the weeds are gone. That's because I started using Clark's Lawn Landscaping. I dread to regret it, boy, but Sally saw that sucked so much. Anyway, what you need to know right now, Clark's Lawn Landscaping is doing the fertilization and weed control. Oh, they'll get the weeds under control. Don't let weeds do a pain in your grass. Call Clark's. They're also doing aeration this month, and they're going to give you $20 off their mosquito treatment for the month of May. Call Clark's Lawn and Landscaping at 781-4991. Online, it's clarksturfpro.com. This is Rex Chapman. You might know me from a former life as an NBA player, or from my spectacular fall from grace, or maybe just follow me on Twitter. Now, I'm hosting a new podcast called Charges with Rex Chapman. This podcast will take you on a journey through some of the most fascinating scandals that have rocked the world of sports. Each episode is
Yeah, I think I'm on the tramp of the vaccine's not with it.
Fox Sports Radio 1400. Online at foxsportsradio1400.com. On your phone with the iHeartRadio app. And on hundreds of devices like Alexa, Google Home, Xbox, and Sonos. An iHeartRadio station.
Welcome back to the rundown. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. One ESPN analyst is already questioning Urban Meyer's use of his first round pick. Look, Urban Meyer has been pretty much successful everywhere he's went. Now, me personally, I think the way that he left Florida with claiming heart issues, and then all of a sudden he's back on his feet and rolling and ready to go. Then you've got him going up to Ohio State, and, you know, they won games, but just kind of the way things shook out up there, not what he really wanted. But as far as on-field stuff, Urban Meyer gets the job done. Here's the other interesting thing, though. Marcus Spears said he didn't like the way that they were using Travis Etienne, the first-round pick out of Clemson. They're basically lining him up at wide receiver is what they're trying to do with him there. Now, if you think about that, Etienne was a dynamic receiver for Clemson last season. And if they can line him up to do some stuff like that, I think that's great for him as a player. They see that he's versatile. Here's the thing, though. They hired Urban Meyer because he's different, and he can do some stuff that's different with offense. If he comes in and you've got Etienne on one side, and then at running back, you've got James Robinson, who had like 1,500 combined yards last season. You have those two as big playmakers that can step out and do some things. Wouldn't that be just interesting if you had two running backs? And I think he may try to do the same thing with Robinson, too. They haven't put that out there yet. But you don't know which way to defend. And Meyer said that football is a game of matchups. And I agree with Coach Meyer on that. So if you're trying to match up with the speed of those two backs and you don't know what you're going to have, I mean, are they going to line up with ETN back there one time and then Robinson on the outside? They could go with just ultra speed and have both of them lined up and in 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. You could do lots of different things with them. But Marcus Spears said, if I see Travis Etienne lined up 70% of the time at the slot position, I'd fire Urban Meyer myself. Here's the thing, though. Before we just mock what Urban Meyer's doing, he was brought there to bring a new feel to Jacksonville. I think they're going to be better in the long run simply because they probably figured out the answer at quarterback. They haven't had a good quarterback since Mark Brunell, basically, in Jacksonville. So I think they should give him an opportunity and then go from there. One of the things that, no one really questioned with Trevor Lawrence is his football IQ. He's one of the smartest guys that's out there. So no one questions Travis Etienne's athletic ability. Me personally, last season, I followed James Robinson a lot because he was one of those guys you could get as far as your daily fantasy stuff that would shoot up the charts because he'd have a game where he'd get, 12 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown, and then he'd catch a pass. He'd have 5 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Well, that's 21 points, something like that, in 24 points, depending on what league you're playing in. So the ability to put up numbers and to have different mismatches is what Urban Meyer tries to do. And if Travis Etienne can be bullish enough where he can muscle up some of these wide receivers or just run past the defensive backs or just run past some of them too, make it really difficult on them, that might be a good idea. Now, on the other hand, you can make the logic that they should have gotten a left tackle to protect Trevor Lawrence's blind side, but that's something that other teams just, for some reason, there were 2 teams that had picks in the draft that did stupid things with those, and one of them was Jacksonville. I think they should have gotten a left tackle because they had one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. Same thing goes for Cincinnati, who they just basically said, we want what LSU had at one point. We want the 2019 of LSU with Joe Burrow and everything else. And I think Joe Burrow hinted to them, hey, I want Jamar Chase. But you can't make plays from your back. The offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus for the Bengals, was number 30 in the league last year out of 32 teams. They had the opportunity to make it better with getting Penei Sewell, who people think is going to be a 10-year starter in the league. You can have Jamar Chase out there, but if he doesn't have time to get him the ball, it's not going to work out well for them. I think the same thing with Jacksonville could be said about with Trevor Lawrence, but you've got him there. You might as well try to use that to implement some different kind of matchups that can really spark the fire down there in Jacksonville. All right, so my final thing today on my notes is I know a lot of people don't like to watch the NBA. Oh, Rob, the NBA, I don't watch it, but then they do. They lie, and then they end up watching the games later on. You've got this play-in tournament that's pretty interesting. And I'll tell you why. You've got guys that there's a possibility that you could have LeBron James and Anthony Davis left out of the playoffs if they don't win this State Farm play-in tournament. That is must-see TV. You want to see guys in the NBA, like in the regular season, they don't really play that hard, okay? But in this tournament that they're going to have just to get into the playoffs, you're going to get A1 effort out of all these teams. And here's the interesting part. The first matchup for LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and I know everybody loves the Lakers. They got to play against Steph Curry, who just won the scoring title. And if I have the opportunity, and if you're Steph Curry can completely take over a game. I think the Lakers were the 7th seed. Golden State was the 8th seed, basically. So the way this works out, Charlotte and Indiana play first, okay? And with that, those two teams have to capture 2 straight wins to secure the 8th seed for the postseason. The winner between the Celtics and the Wizards automatically take the 7th seed for the playoffs. So that's automatically a play-in game. But that one game with the Lakers and the Warriors, that is going to be outstanding basketball to watch. And that's Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. I will be up late watching that game. You know, I could be called one of the president of the LeBron James haters club. I'm fine with that. But to watch Steph Curry possibly knock LeBron James into something where, you know, he could be out, that is impressive. And that's what the NBA used to be. It used to be really fun. Now, you know, it's kind of gotten flat. But this play-in tournament, oof, makes things interesting. All right, Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk is next.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
He is the czar of Clemson Sports. Be sure to check him out. He'll be on from 4 to 6 this afternoon right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. My name is Rob. Podcast up at 5 o'clock. Follow me on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, good point, Jimmy. Good point, sir. All right, you guys rock, man. Thanks for checking us out today. We'll see you later on.